I was hospitalized for exhaustion. No one came. Not a single call. Just a message from my brother. Are you going to transfer the money for the car? That night, I closed all the accounts. 3 days later, my dad called desperate. My name is Miguel. I'm 27 years old. And a few days ago, I ended up in the hospital for exhaustion. I was in a bed with tubes in my arm, waiting for someone from my family to show up. Nobody came, no calls, no messages. It all started 8 months ago. I lived in a small apartment in Springfield, a cheap but decent place. I worked as a supervisor at an auto parts factory, 8 hours a day. I earned enough to pay my bills and save a little for the future. I didn't need much, just stability. But then my family decided I was their ticket to doing nothing. My parents, Robert and Diane, are 58 and 56 years old. A couple of years ago, they stopped working. My dad claimed his back couldn't handle it, though I saw him lift things without issue. My mom said her nerves kept her from standing, but she spent all day watching TV. I never understood how they came to that conclusion. But one day they just quit their jobs and expected me to support them. They didn't ask. There was no discussion. They just assumed I, the eldest, the responsible one, would take care of them. Then there's my brother, Dylan, 19 years old. He's in his last year of high school, not because he's a genius, but because he's lazy. He spends his days playing video games, hanging out with friends, and dreaming of a sports car he can't afford. Every time I told him to get a job, he'd say he was focused on school. His grades were a mess. But according to him, I was supposed to pay for everything. At first, I said no. I explained that I couldn't support them, that I had my own life. But my mom would cry. My dad would look at me like I was a traitor, and Dylan called me selfish. We're family, Miguel, they'd repeat. And like an idiot, I gave in. I always gave in. So I changed everything. I left the 8-hour factory job and took a second job as a delivery driver at a warehouse. Between the two, I was working 16 hours a day, sometimes more. I'd leave home at 6 a.m. and get back after midnight. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky, then started again. Every week, I sent money to my parents for their rent bills and food. I also gave Dylan some, even though I knew he spent it on nonsense. Not school. It was 8 months of hell. I'd wake up exhausted, my eyes burning, my body aching. But I did it because I thought it was the right thing. I thought my family needed me, that one day they'd see everything I was doing for them and thank me. How wrong I was. The collapse happened on a Tuesday. I was at the factory fixing a machine. I'd been working 14 hours. The heat was brutal. I felt dizzy but ignored it, like always. Suddenly, everything blurred. I heard my coworker Mike yell my name, and then nothing. I woke up in the hospital. The doctors said it was extreme exhaustion. My blood pressure was through the roof, my heart was racing, and I was dehydrated. They hooked me up to N4, ran tests, and gave me a list of things I needed to change. Rest, eat better, less stress. They looked at me like it was that simple. I told them I'd try, but I wasn't sure of anything. That first night, alone in the room, I stared at my phone, waiting for something. My parents knew I was in the hospital. The factory had notified them, but no one came. No messages, no calls, nothing. I thought maybe they'd show up the next day with some excuse, but the second day was the same. I was there, hooked up to machines, feeling like garbage, and my family wasn't there. Then Dylan's message came. I saw his name on the screen and, for a second, felt relief. Finally, someone cares, I thought. But when I opened it, it was like a punch to the gut. Are you to transfer the money for the car? The seller says if I don't pay this week, he'll give it to someone else. It's $500. Miguel, don't let me down. That was it. No, how are you? No, what happened? Just money. He knew I was in the hospital. My parents told him. But all he cared about was his damn car, one he was buying with a loan he couldn't afford. And now he wanted me to cover half. I stared at the message, not knowing what to do. I felt rage, sadness, everything mixed together. I thought about the last 8 months, the sleepless nights, the constant pain, how I was killing myself for them. And now in a hospital, all I got was this garbage. That night, I made a decision. It wasn't impulsive, though it might sound like it. It was like I was seeing everything clearly for the first time. My family didn't love me, didn't respect me. They only saw me as a money machine, and I was done. I opened the bank apps on my phone. We had 3 joint accounts, one for my parents' rent, another for their expenses, and one for Dylan. I closed them all, transferred what was left in my personal account, the one I never shared. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every cent I'd earned with my health, with my life. When I was done, I turned off my phone and lay back. I didn't feel guilt or fear, just relief. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. They discharged me 2 days later. The doctors repeated that I needed to take it easy, that my body wouldn't survive another collapse. I nodded, but I was already thinking about what came next. I wasn't going back to my parents. I wasn't answering their messages. I was going to start over, alone, taking care of myself. But things are never that simple. 3 days after closing the accounts, my phone rang. It was my dad. I ignored the first 2 calls, but on the third, I answered more out of curiosity than anything else. His voice sounded desperate. "Miguel, what did you do? The accounts are empty. We have nothing. How could you do this to us? We're your family." I didn't say anything. I just listened as he shouted, saying I'd abandoned them, that I was selfish. Then he said something that left me cold. "If you don't help us, I don't know what I'll do. My health is bad, Miguel. The doctors say it's serious." For a second, I doubted. What if it's true? But then I thought of Dylan's message in the hospital. The 8 months I gave everything for nothing. I hung up. I don't know what comes next. Part of me wants to believe my dad is sick, but another part knows the trap. They always do this. Guilt me, manipulate me, make me feel like they'll die without me. But I'm tired. I don't know if I did the right thing. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm fighting for myself. The following days were a whirlwind. I locked myself in my Springfield apartment, trying to get my life in order. I started looking for part-time jobs, something that wouldn't destroy me like before. I also went to an appointment with a doctor who gave me a lecture about stress and prescribed anxiety pills. I didn't take them. I didn't want to depend on anything. I just wanted to feel normal again. But the calm didn't last. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My mom sent messages almost every hour, begging me to come back, saying they couldn't survive without me. My dad left a couple of voicemails, calmer than before but with the same tone. "We need to talk, Miguel. This can't go on like this." I ignored everything. I decided to stay firm, though each message felt like a stab in the chest. What threw me off was that Dylan wasn't texting. Normally, he'd be the first to send a message, even if it was to complain or ask for something. His silence made me nervous, but I chalked it up to him being mad because I didn't give him the car money. I told myself it wasn't my problem. He needed to learn to fend for himself. On the 3rd day, someone knocked on my door. It was my mom, Diane, standing there with a grocery bag in her hand, like that would soften things. Her eyes were swollen, and her voice trembled when she spoke. "Miguel, I can't do this anymore," she said. "Your dad isn't well. The doctors say it could be his heart. We don't have money for tests, let alone surgery. Please help us." I stared at her, looking for any sign she was lying. She'd always been good at drama, but this time felt different. Her hands were shaking, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. I tried not to give in. "Mom, I can't anymore. Not after everything. I need to take care of myself." She clutched the bag to her chest. "And what about us? Are you going to let us die? You're our son, Miguel. This is what family does." I closed the door without answering. It wasn't easy. Her words stuck with me, swirling in my head. I spent the rest of the day trying to distract myself, but I couldn't. What if it's true? What if my dad is sick and I'm being selfish? I hated myself for doubting, but I couldn't help it. The next day, I got a message from my neighbor, Tom, who lives near my parents' house. He said he'd seen Dylan talking to some shady guys outside the house, men with tattoos and a black truck. It looked like he was in trouble. "Just letting you know, Miguel," he wrote. My stomach tightened. Dylan had always been reckless, but this sounded bad. I decided to go to my parents' house, not to give in, but to figure out what was going on with Dylan. When I got there, the atmosphere was heavy. The door was locked, but my mom opened it after a few seconds. She looked pale, with deep circles under her eyes. My dad was sitting on the couch with a beer in his hand, which pissed me off. If he was so sick, why was he drinking? Where's Dylan? I asked, cutting to the chase. My mom started crying. We don't know, Miguel. He hasn't been back since yesterday. He said he was going to close a deal, something about the car, but he's not answering his phone. My dad looked up. This wouldn't be happening if you hadn't cut off the money. Dylan wouldn't be mixed up in who knows what. I wanted to scream, but held back. Don't start, Dad. I'm not here to fight. I just want to know where Dylan is. They had no answers. They told me Dylan had been going out a lot, coming home late, talking to people they didn't know. They mentioned something about a loan for the car, but when I pressed for details, they clammed up. We don't know, Miguel. He doesn't tell us everything, my mom said. I didn't believe her. I left the house frustrated. Something wasn't right. I decided to look for Dylan myself. I went to the mall where he usually hung out, the park where he met his friends, even the auto shop where he'd been eyeing the car he wanted. Nobody knew anything. One of his friends, a guy named Jake, told me Dylan had been acting weird, avoiding everyone like he was scared of something. I think he got involved with the wrong people, Jake said, shrugging. He talked about a loan but wouldn't say more. That chilled me. A loan from who? Dylan had no job, no savings. If he was borrowing money, it wasn't from a bank. I went back to my apartment with a knot in my stomach. I tried calling him, but his phone was off. I sent a message, though I didn't expect a reply. Dylan, where are you? Answer. This isn't a game. I spent the night tossing and turning, unable to sleep. My mind wouldn't stop. I thought about Dylan, my parents, the possibility that this was all my fault. If I'd given him the $500. But then I remembered why I said no. I couldn't keep being his ATM. Not after everything. The next day, things got worse. My mom called 3 times in a row, but I didn't answer. I didn't want more drama. Then she sent a message. Miguel, please answer. It's important. I ignored it, but half an hour later, my phone rang again. It was my dad. His name on the screen gave me a bad feeling, but I answered. Miguel, he said, his voice breaking. It wasn't his usual angry or pleading tone. It was different, like he could barely speak. It's Dylan. They found him. He's dead. I felt the air leave my lungs. What? I mumbled, like I hadn't heard right. The police found him in an alley near the highway. He's dead, Miguel. My son is dead. I didn't know what to say. My mind went blank. I hung up without saying goodbye and sat on the couch, staring at the wall. Dylan, my brother, the one always asking for something, laughing, making stupid plans, was dead. I couldn't process it. Part of me wanted to scream. Another wanted to cry, but nothing came out. Just emptiness. I didn't know how it happened, but something told me it wasn't an accident. Jake's words about the loan, the shady guys Tom saw, the deal my parents mentioned. It all pointed to Dylan getting over his head. I sat there, frozen, for I don't know how long. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't look. I couldn't. All I could think about was Dylan. How we got here, what would happen now. Part of me felt guilt, like I could have prevented it. But another part, the exhausted one, reminded me Dylan made his own choices. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling things were going to get worse. The silence in my apartment was deafening. Finally, I picked up my phone. There was a message from my mom. Miguel, come home, please. We can't handle this alone. I read it and deleted it. I wasn't ready to face what was coming, but I knew I couldn't stay sitting forever. Dylan was dead, and I needed answers. The next day, I went to the police station. It wasn't easy. The cold lights and stale coffee smell made me nervous. An officer named Ramirez took me to a small office and explained what they knew. They found Dylan in an alley near the highway with wounds pointing to a violent attack. There were no witnesses, but they had a lead, a burner phone near the body with messages about a late payment. Ramirez looked at me seriously. Your brother was mixed up in something shady, Miguel. Do you know anything about a loan someone bears he was dealing with? I remembered what Jake, Dylan's friend, told me about a loan and Tom's message about the shady guys in the truck. I don't know much, I said. Dylan wanted to buy a car, asked me for money, but I said no. He mentioned a deal, but didn't give details. Ramirez nodded, taking notes. We're looking into a group that lends money at high rates, dangerous people. We think Dylan owed them and didn't pay. If you know anything else, now's the time. I didn't have more to tell them, but I left the station with a certainty. Dylan had gotten involved with the wrong people over that damn car, and now he was dead. I went to my parents' house, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to close this. When I got there, it felt like a funeral. My mom was on the couch, surrounded by tissues, crying nonstop. My dad was in the kitchen, staring at a beer bottle. As soon as they saw me, my mom stood and came toward me. "This is your fault, Miguel," she screamed, her voice breaking. "If you'd given him the money, Dylan would be alive. You killed him." Her words hit like a punch. I tried to stay calm. "Mom, Dylan got mixed up with dangerous people. He took a loan he couldn't pay. It wasn't my fault." My dad stepped closer, his eyes blazing. "Not your fault? You closed the accounts. You left us with nothing. Dylan had to find money because you turned your back on us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious? I killed myself working for you. I ended up in a hospital, and no one showed up. Dylan asked me for money for my hospital bed, and now you blame me for this?" My mom sobbed harder, but it wasn't just grief. There was something in her tone, a manipulation I knew too well. "You're our son, Miguel. You're supposed to take care of us. Now Dylan's dead and your dad's sick. Are you going to abandon us too?" That was the final straw. "Enough," I said, raising my voice. "I'm not here to fight. I came to tell you I'm done. I can't keep doing this. Dylan made his choices, and I'm not responsible for what happened." I left the house before they could respond. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it would burst. I was shaking, but I also felt lighter. For the first time, I didn't feel trapped. That night, I met with Jake, Dylan's friend, at a downtown bar. I needed to understand more. After a few beers, Jake opened up. He told me Dylan had been obsessed with a red Mustang he saw at a lot. He didn't have the money, so he contacted a guy who lent cash, someone known for playing dirty. Dylan thought he could handle it, that he'd find a way to pay, but when I couldn't give him the $500, he panicked and stopped paying what he owed. "I tried to warn him," Jake said, staring at his glass. "Those guys don't forgive." But Dylan wouldn't listen. He thought it'd all work out. I stayed silent. It all fit. The guys in the truck, the deal my parents mentioned, the burner phone. Dylan had gotten himself into a mess he couldn't control, and he paid the ultimate price. It hurt, but it also made me angry. He'd chosen that path, even knowing what could happen. The next few days were a blur. I went to Dylan's funeral, but didn't stay long. My parents barely spoke to me, just glared with resentment. Some distant relatives whispered that I'd abandoned the family. I didn't care. I was done carrying everyone's guilt. The police called a week later. They caught one of the guys involved in Dylan's death. He confessed it was a settling of scores. Dylan owed thousands and didn't pay, so they came for him. There was nothing I could have done, knowing that gave me some peace, but it didn't erase the pain. I decided it was time to move on. I found a new part-time job, an auto parts store. It didn't pay much, but it was calm and gave me time to breathe. I also started therapy, something I never thought I'd do. The therapist, a woman named Sarah, helped me see that it wasn't my job to save my family, that I couldn't carry their choices. One day, I got a letter from my mom. It was long, handwritten, full of pleas. She said my dad was worse, that they needed money for his medicine, that I was their last hope. For a moment, I considered replying. But then I remembered everything, the hospital, Dylan's message to blame, the lies. I tore up the letter and threw it away. I don't know if my dad is really sick. Part of me hopes he isn't. But another knows I can't go back to that cycle. I moved to a new, smaller apartment, but it's mine. I changed my phone number and didn't tell anyone where I was. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living for myself. Dylan's gone, and that will always hurt. Sometimes I wonder if I could have done something different, but I know it was my responsibility. He made his choices, and my parents made theirs. I'm making mine now. I don't know how far I'll go, but at least I'm walking.